Let's talk some college baseball with Teddy Cahill from Baseball America here on Ruskin and Zach. Teddy, good to talk to you. How are you?
Absolutely. It's a great day here, and we're getting down the stretch. It's a great time for college baseball.
It's a lot of fun when the calendar turns to May. How much do you think Arkansas helped their not their chances, but their stock after this weekend and what happened down at Auburn, taking 2 out of 3?
Yeah, that was definitely a big series win for them. Not only did they kind of consolidate their lead there in the division, but it was a nice boost to their RPI. So that was a big deal for them, and it was just a nice series win. Auburn is a good team, so to be able to go out on the road and win those 2 games that they did, and it wasn't easy necessarily. I know they had to fight. They come back on Friday night, and it was just a really nice series win for the Hogs.
How would you rank the SEC as in relation? Obviously, it's the best baseball conference in the country, but with this year's crop of teams, with teams from the past few years, because it seems like there's a bunch of really good teams, but there's only one really elite team.
Yeah, it's been a little tricky to tell. There's a lot of teams that are kind of right around 500, especially out east, and I'm sure part of that is because they all have to play Tennessee. And then in the West, there are these 4 teams that have kind of separated from the pack, but you look at LSU and you see that you got swept by Arkansas, and you lost A&M, but they have these other series wins. I don't know. There's just not a whole lot of separation with some of those teams, and so I think Tennessee obviously stacks up really well against any team that you want to think of in recent history in the SEC, whether that's Arkansas last year or Vanderbilt in 2019. But the rest of the conference, it's a little muddier, and it's a little harder to tell just who is and who isn't really good this year.
Talking with Teddy Cahill from Baseball America here on Ruskin and Zach. Let's talk about the Arkansas team and just what do you like about them? What are some flaws that maybe people don't see here because we're too close to it here in Arkansas? From your perspective, what do you make of the Arkansas team?
It's a really good team overall. I think that the offense hasn't clicked at maybe the level that I thought it was going to come into the year. I thought that this might be the best offense in the country if everything came together, and it hasn't quite come together like that. But it's still a really good offense, and it's still a really good defense. I think that's been one of the great things to watch about that team, is just watching guys like Jalen Battles defend. I knew that was going to be fun, and it has been. And then the pitching staff has come together, and Connor Nolan's been a huge part of that. Wasn't quite sure what to expect with him moving into the Friday starter role after the last couple of years that he's had, and how hard that has been for him. But he's been fantastic, and that's just been a huge part of why Arkansas has been able to have the season that it's had, I think.
They've got Vanderbilt this weekend, Alabama next weekend, then the SEC tournament. What would they have to do ultimately? And I know there's variables with teams around them, but what would they have to do to host a regional, to be a lock to host the regional?
I don't know. It's so weird. Their RPI is 20. And that is the one thing holding them back from me saying that they've already locked it in. If they had an RPI that you would typically see from an SEC division leader at this point in the season, I don't think there would be any question about it. But that RPI number means that they can't afford to back up hardly at all now. The good news is that they're done playing teams, from outside the SEC, and that number is probably only going to improve. But they just need to keep winning some more games. Winning the SEC West would certainly lock it in, but they're close to being a lock as it is. It's just their RPI has never matched what human polls evaluate them as, and that makes it a little difficult to read what the committee is going to think about them. The committee certainly hears from the coaches committees, the regional subcommittees that they have there, but they're also going to look at those metrics like RPI, and it's going to be a little bit of conflicting information for them on the Razorbacks.
Well, I think that the Razorback baseball fan relies on the fact that, hey, no matter, if we get postseason baseball, there'll be 11,500 people in that ballpark, and that's got to mean something to the committee. So knowing how the committee works, is that still something they rely on, or is it more data-driven as opposed to, well, we know if we put games at Baum Walker, they'll sell all the tickets?
Yeah, I just don't think that matters as much anymore. I think early in the 20th century, that really did matter, that, if you could guarantee them big crowds. So, LSU, Arkansas, it really mattered for those places. And now I think that there are, more venues that are really good. None really as good as Baum Walker, certainly, but there are more really good venues around the country. There are more really committed fan bases around the country. That's become less of a concern. And, that doesn't mean that, they're immune from knowing that if they put a regional there, that it'll look really good on TV and everything. But I also don't think that right now Arkansas is as close to the edge as that would, be a concern for. If they slip up, maybe they're back to that edge. But I just don't think that the committee anymore is really concerned about who's going to bring in the biggest attendance, because they can go to so many different places around the country and know that they're going to be packed houses.
What do you make of what's going on over in Knoxville? It's a good baseball team, but there's a lot of noise around that team. And it starts with the guy who's in charge.
I mean, Tennessee just is that's kind of who they are. They're boisterous. Yes, it starts with the man in charge, Tony Vitello, and he's not going to shy away from that. But they're out there, they're having fun. It's the identity of the team the last couple of years, and they're not going to shy away from any of that stuff, and they're just going to kind of let loose. And look, it's hard to argue with the results at this point. Not only this season, but last season, making it to Omaha for the first time since 2005. And not everyone is wired the same way, but I do know that it seems like, to a man, everyone on that roster loves playing for Tony Vitello. And, so their players might not respond the same way to a different coach, and a different coach's players might not respond the same way to Vitello, but his team really seems to thrive off of this, and it's definitely working for the Vols this year.
We're talking with Teddy Cahill from Baseball America here on Ruskin and Zach. Your drive home is powered by Mr. Sparky. Teddy, as far as the SEC goes, we got 2 weekends to go and then the conference tournament. How many bids do you think this league gets, and who's a lock? Who's kind of on the fence right now?
It's it looks like it's going to be less than what the SEC has been getting at times in the past. I don't think this is going to be a 10-year SEC bid year. I think you're looking more at like 8 or 9. Several teams probably are already locked in. Obviously Tennessee locked in, and Arkansas locked into a bid, and all the rest of that. On the edge, I mean, Kentucky really made a move last week. They opened up a path for themselves with that series win against the Vols. South Carolina's not out of it. Ole Miss isn't out of it. Really, with the exception of Mississippi State and Mizzou, it feels like everyone else is still in it. And honestly, I mean, it's the SEC. I don't want to rule anyone out, because if somebody ran off a couple sweeps here over the last 2 weeks and then played well in Hoover, it can fix a lot of things on your resume in a hurry.
We tend to get sort of locked on what's going on with 14 teams in the league. I mean, who nationally are your contenders? I mean, your opinion, not to get rid of the rankings. I mean, if you're going to give me like 5 or 6 teams that you say, okay, these guys are real contenders to go to Omaha, who are we talking about?
Well, it starts with Tennessee, Oregon State, and Oklahoma State. Those 3 teams are kind of starting to separate. From there are a lot more teams that could make it. The ACC in particular has several teams that I think are talented enough to, but are all flawed in their own ways. Virginia Tech has been incredible the last month and a half, I would say, but that's a team that basically has no postseason experience on the roster. So how is that going to play once you get into the thick of things in June? And that's a place where an Arkansas has an advantage, because they've been through this before. So I think it's going to be really interesting from that standpoint. But I really like Tennessee, Oregon State, Oklahoma State. I like where Arkansas is at right now, and I do like I still like what Virginia Tech can do even with that inexperience. I think that looks like a pretty complete team right now.
Teddy Cahill, our guest here, Baseball America, as we talk about the regular season winding down here on Ruskin and Zach. How about a little bit as Vanderbilt's coming to town this weekend? I think people are Tennessee's been a juggernaut, but people that are casually watching this are used to seeing Vanderbilt near the top of the SEC East, and that has been the case this year.
Yeah, it's been an up and down season for Vanderbilt, really from the get-go when they lost a series at home to Oklahoma State on opening weekend. But they're a younger team. They've got a lot of freshmen and sophomores in key roles, and replacing Kamar Rocker and Jack Leiter in the rotation. We knew it was going to be difficult for them. Their pitching staff has actually been very good again this year, though. It's one of the better pitching staffs in the country in terms of ERA. And their offense has not quite clicked, but they're coming off of a really big series win on the road at Georgia. They have played well at times. They've shown their age at times. I'll be interested to see what they do in the big time environment that they're going to be in this weekend. But mostly it's a team that's going to throw a lot of strikes, going to pitch well. They defend pretty well, and it's going to be a matter of whether the bats are going this weekend or not.
Mm-hmm. Teddy Cahill, Baseball America, our guest here on Ruskin and Zach. We appreciate the insight, Teddy. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.